Hello, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Today, we answer the question, should I name a trust as beneficiary of my accounts?
Yeah,
This is
good one.
this is another one of our case studies. As always, we anonymize and change the details just enough to protect the privacy of our clients, but at the same time are bringing you real-world examples, hot off the real world. Okay, so Rhonda, she wants the benefits of a trust. She's interested. The benefits being you get to avoid probate, you reduce, and therefore you reduce the chance of a child or contesting her will. But she's not quite ready for the headache of a full blown setup. I'll go into what that means later, but she's not ready for to dive in head first quite yet. So in Rhonda's situation, in this particular set of facts, naming her trust as a beneficiary makes sense.
Okay.
I think I'm leaving a lot of details, so I'll give a little bit more background.
Let's dive in and get some.
All right. So what's the full-blown setup? Usually when you create a trust, you have to fund it, meaning it has to own things.
Right.
Right. So if I'm creating a trust for myself, I would have to change my bank account and my brokerage account and maybe even my home from Anthony Park as owner to the ownership will change to the Anthony Park Trust, right?
Correct.
So, there's a headache involved with that. If you live in a co-op, for example, that can be a huge headache. But even if you live in a home or a condo, that's work, changing your deed.
It is, yes.
And just running around to different financial institutions, especially nowadays, that could be a pain, having to reopen accounts. Your account numbers are changing. Now your direct deposits might go in the wrong, because the account numbers are different now. There's a lot of reasons why it's a pain.
Yeah.
So what Ronnie is proposing, or what we're doing for her actually, is instead of she has a trust, but instead of changing all her accounts now, we're naming where her accounts are staying as is. They're all in Rhonda's name, but instead of saying that, changing it to the Rhonda Trust, we're saying, okay, it's still in Rhonda's name, but we're making we're adding beneficiaries to those accounts that go into Rhonda's trust if she passes away. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Am I
It
doing a
does.
good job explaining that to anyone who's not clear on this?
Well, I understand the concept, but I do think you're explaining it.
Okay.
Yes.
So just to be clear, a beneficiary is like life insurance. You name who gets it when you die, right? That's exactly how life insurance works. For those who don't know, you can name beneficiaries to other types of accounts, such as your bank accounts or your brokerage accounts. Right? But in this case, instead of naming your spouse or your child as your beneficiary, you're naming your trust. So upon Rhonda's passing, instead of the money going to a person, it'll flow into her trust.
That definitely makes sense.
Okay. Phew. Thank you. Cool. So that's the difference between having a trust that's already funded, meaning where Rhonda went around and changed all her accounts to her trust names, to having a trust that's essentially unfunded. It's empty right now. But upon her death, the beneficiary designations will pour all those funds into the trust upon her death.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Oh boy, just making sure. I got to make sure we're all on the same page here. Okay.
Are we all on the same page? Yes.
So, okay, I think I covered this a little bit, but let's go over how to name a trust as a beneficiary. Like, what are the exact steps? It's really pretty simple, 3 steps. First, you create the trust document. You create the trust. It's all centered around this agreement, this trust document. And then you fund the trust. Yes, even if Rhonda is doing her beneficiary plan, you still have to fund it, even if it's a nominal amount. And we usually just do $10 or $100. And when I say fund it, it's almost like a legal fiction. There's not actually.
You're right.
She doesn't actually pull a
handover.
$10 bill out of her pocket and put it anywhere. So, but yeah, we've technically funded it.
Yes.
And then finally, it's as simple as naming a person beneficiary. So Rhonda will contact her bank accounts, and every bank has a set of forms or PDFs where it's change of beneficiary designation. Usually, is that what it sounds like?
Oh,
yeah.
Yep. Just a quick Google for your bank will pull up all those forms. Yeah.
Yeah, you just fill those out, submit them, fax or upload or whatever the case may be to your institution, and you should get a confirmation hopefully in like a week or two. Does that timing sound about right?
About right. Yeah.
So if you take these 3 steps, here's what you have. Here's the result. You have a hollow, meaning essentially empty trust, but it's ready. It's kind of there on standby. And it's ready to, with open arms, to accept the money or the funds.
Waiting.
Yeah,
waiting
as a beneficiary upon your passing. So it's like, okay, when Rhonda passes, we are ready to accept the E-Trade money or the Wells Fargo money, right?
Right.
But I'm empty now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just waiting.
Oh gosh. So I hope I'm doing a good job explaining this, just because I know most folks are like, what? Trust? What? So,
like, wait, how does that work?
Yeah.
Well, ask questions,
Yes,
in
please.
the comments.
Ask questions if I haven't covered anything clearly.
Yeah, because we can talk about this more in depth at another time.
What are the pros of this setup? What are the pros of having your trust as beneficiary? So the number one advantage is Rhonda's number one reason, in that she gets to avoid the cost and headache of probate. So when you have a beneficiary designation on an account, whether it goes to an individual or to a trust, that doesn't go through probate. It automatically, all you do is, okay, so when Rhonda passes away, as her trustee, I just go to that institution with a death certificate and a copy of the trust, show that I don't have to go to court, there is no probate process, and the funds come to the trust directly. I skip probate. I skip the headache. I skip the time. Yeah?
Yeah. Yep. And we've talked about this at length. Probate is not quick, and it's not easy, and it's not cheap.
It also reduces the chance of a will contest. So in this case, Rhonda is, let's say she's disinheriting a wayward child. So when you have a will and you have probate, there's a whole structure, there's a whole infrastructure for how that wayward child can formally contest the will and, demand her rightful share as a daughter. Now, she could technically still contest this beneficiary designation and trust, but it's a lot harder. There isn't as much structure. There isn't a clear path on how to do that. I mean, there's ways, but it's not as well set up. It's just you're creating a barrier to that child objecting to your plan, right?
Correct.
And then lastly, I think this is actually maybe the most important one. It's very psychological. There's a big psychological leap to changing the names on all your accounts in your house.
Right.
A lot of people, I don't know if I would feel great with that. It's just a weird feeling to not have your name on your stuff. I know it'll still say the Rhonda Trust, but it's not the same as being in your name.
Right.
And that's a big leap. So by doing it this way, you get to keep everything in your name. Right? There's disadvantages, which we'll talk about next. But if that's a psychological barrier for you, this is a nice way to have some of the benefits of the trust without having to sort of, take your name off everything you own. That's just a scary step.
It seems like a happy medium, right? Yeah. Something in between the full blown and the not having it.
Yeah, totally. All right, so let's get into some of those cons. What are the drawbacks of your trust as a beneficiary? All right, the big drawback is this way of doing things, and for my solo ager clients, this is a big deal. This way of doing things does not protect you from court-appointed strangers, okay? And here's why. If all your accounts are still in your name and you're reaching that age where somebody could at least accuse or sort of assert that you're in cognitive decline, then there are funds available for them to take control over. Anything that's in your name, if a court-appointed stranger becomes your guardian, they now have control of those funds. Does that make sense so far?
It does, yes.
However, if Rhonda had switched everything over so that the accounts and the house and whatever was in the name of the Rhonda Trust, a court-appointed stranger or court-appointed guardian could not access those items. Only the trustee could, the trustee being the person that Rhonda chose.
Right.
So that actually is a double-edged sword. Not only does it prevent anyone from accessing, not only does it prevent a court-appointed stranger from, gaining control of your assets. How do I say this without being too cynical? Court-appointed strangers don't bother with cases where they're not going to have control of the money.
Right.
So they're not going to bother you. You're almost like not worth their time because you're not a mark.
Correct.
Okay, that was super cynical, but
no, but it makes sense. I mean, if there's you got what's in it for me mentality. I mean, it is what it is. If you're not going to make money, then
If I'm a court-appointed stranger and I see two older citizens, two solo agers, two older ladies who I think I can convince the judge needs a guardian, do I spend my time digging in to the one who has a bunch of bank and brokerage accounts in her name, or do I spend my energy on the one who doesn't own a dime because she has a trust and a lawyer who's on the trust who will probably not let me touch that money?
Exactly. That's going to be a pretty clear win.
So not only does it prevent that from happening, they're not even going to bother with you. So you're kind of having this. You kind of have this repellent, this court-appointed stranger repellent. Okay. Next disadvantage of your trust as your beneficiary. So, sorry. To circle back, when you name your trust as your beneficiary, you're keeping everything in your name. So, you're kind of still out there. You don't have the repellent.
Right, like that. The repellent.
Yeah.
The guardian repellent.
Right. Okay. Next. So in general, I'm not a huge fan of using beneficiary designations as a substitute for estate planning. And here's why. It seems, you may have been listening and thinking, oh, wow, like, why do I even need an estate plan? I will just name beneficiaries on all my accounts and bing, bang, boom. I don't even need a will. I don't even need a trust. And you get to avoid probate. It sounds awesome. Sounds so efficient. And I'm just going to do that. Here's why that usually doesn't work. In my experience, this is real world experience.
Yes.
People do not do a good job of tracking their beneficiary designations. And more often than I can recall, you have the girlfriend from 30 years ago who, getting the account and not your own child. You have, you thought you had a very, very even distribution amongst your 3 kids, but then you forgot that, you had your kid as beneficiary on the big account. So now it's totally out of whack, and one kid is getting way more than the other 2, right?
Yep.
And you might be thinking, oh, I'm organized. I'll keep track. Listen. My job is to see things over years, not even months, right? People forget. And there are no reminders. Your beneficiary choices are not listed on your account statement. Sometimes they are, but It's very rare. Usually you don't even know, right?
I haven't seen mine in years.
Janice, do you know who all your beneficiaries are on all your accounts?
No, and I know at one point I'm like, no, because you figure, you got checkings and savings and this and that. I'm sure there's something out of whack. And I can tell you that there was a point where I'm like, oh, I don't mean for that person to still be on there.
Yep.
And you got to fix it. And you didn't realize it till I actually asked. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have everything to my wife or if I have it to the wife and kids or to my will, or to my trust. Those are all,
Looks like we have some digging to do.
Yeah, now I'm getting a little new resolution. Take a look at my beneficiaries.
There you have it.
But look, bottom line is people don't remember. I know you probably think you're the exception. You're the one who's super organized. And I'm sure you're a very organized person.
Sure.
I'm just letting you know. People forget and these things get messed up. So I'm just generally not a fan. Okay. Yeah. That being the last reason why one of the disadvantages or cons of naming your trust as beneficiary is that it's not that much easier than just changing the name on your accounts. If one of the reasons why you're doing this is because you think it's easier than changing the names on your accounts, it is to some extent, but it's a very similar amount of paperwork.
Right.
Yeah. Can you attest to that? Submitting a change of beneficiary form is substantially similar to submitting a new account creation package. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Even if you look at the forms side by side, they're probably about the same. There's maybe only a few words different, and you're going to have to provide all the same documentation. I don't think it's any shorter.
Yeah. So there you go. Those are the pros and cons of using a trust as an empty trust as a beneficiary to your accounts. There's definitely reasons why. It all depends on your situation. I'm not telling you it's good or bad. I'm telling you here are the situations where it might be good, and here are the situations where it might be bad, and you need to figure out what your situation is. And give me a call or in the comments, let me know, and maybe I can help you work through that.
Yeah, this is a great situation where talking out your thoughts, ideas, and plans will help to make a decision whether this works or not for you. Definitely recommend Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan. It does dive into a little bit of how to plan in this situation.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you, Janice, as always. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will talk again soon next time. Bye now.
Bye.